Wherever you are right now, whether you're sitting in a hospital waiting room with your hands folded in prayer, lying in bed scrolling while everyone else sleeps, or hiding in your car in some parking lot trying to breathe through whatever's breaking you, turn up that volume. Tune in here while I tell you a story about a woman who heard her own funeral being planned while she was still alive, and the sister who saved her with nothing but scrubs and a smartphone. It is about the 9 days I spent trapped in my own body, unable to move or speak, listening to my mother-in-law plan my murder while my husband signed the paperwork. Tonight is about betrayal so deep it comes from family, and salvation so unexpected it comes from someone you haven't spoken to in 8 years. Before we get into this, I need you to do something for me. Drop your city in the comments below. Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, Durham, Atlanta, Memphis, Houston, wherever the Lord has you tonight. Because this story about family, betrayal, and unexpected angels, it's traveling across this whole country. And I want to see where my family is watching from. Let's get to our story now. I need you to feel every heartbeat of this story like it's your own. Because for 9 days in March 2024, my heart was the only thing I could control while everything else in my body betrayed me. My name is Keisha Monique Hayes, 34 years old, born and raised in the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, where the banking towers reach for heaven and the neighborhoods still remember what community means. And for 9 days straight, I lay in that ICU bed at Atrium Health Carolinas Medical Center, not able to move a single finger, not able to speak a single word, but able to hear every single syllable that came out of my mother-in-law's mouth while she stood over my hospital bed planning my funeral and my children's future without me in it. It started on a Tuesday night, March 12, 2024, one of those early spring evenings in Carolina when the air still has a bite, but you can smell summer coming underneath it, when the dogwoods are just starting to bloom and everything feels possible. I had just put my babies down for the night. Destiny, 8 years old, with her gap-toothed smile and her obsession with all things purple. Cameron, 6 years old, still sleeping with the stuffed elephant his daddy bought him when he was born. I'd read them both stories. Destiny wanted Charlotte's Web for the 100th time. Cameron wanted anything with dinosaurs. Kissed their little foreheads that still smelled like Johnson's baby lotion and bedtime prayers, tucked them in tight the way my mama used to tuck me in, with the corners folded just right so they felt safe, protected, loved. Told my husband Darius I was running to the Harris Teeter on Providence Road. We were out of milk and eggs and I needed bread for the kids' lunches tomorrow. Regular Tuesday night errand. The kind of thing you do 1,000 times without thinking twice about it. "You want anything?" I asked Darius, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door, my purse from the chair where I'd dropped it after work. "Nah, I'm good," he said, barely looking up from the basketball game on TV. "Be safe." "I always am," I said, and walked out the door of our house on Beatty's Ford Road, the house we'd scraped and saved to buy 3 years ago, the house with the little front porch and the backyard big enough for the kids to play. I never made it home. The Harris Teeter was only 8 minutes away. I'd driven that route so many times I could do it in my sleep. Down Beatty's Ford to Brookshire, over to Providence, past all the familiar landmarks. The church where we got married, the elementary school where Destiny was in 3rd grade, the park where we took the kids every Saturday when the weather was nice. I was sitting at the red light at Providence and Sharon Amity, one of the busiest intersections in Charlotte, where 6 lanes of traffic converge and everyone's always in a hurry. My light was red. I was stopped, waiting, thinking about whether I should grab some chicken for tomorrow's dinner, mentally running through what was in the freezer, what needed to be used up. The light turned green. I started forward, and that's when I saw the headlights. Coming from the left, coming fast, too fast, not slowing down, not stopping, just barreling through that intersection like the red light didn't exist, like physics didn't exist, like consequences were something that happened to other people. A Dodge Charger, black. Later, they told me the driver was going 80 miles an hour in a 45 zone, that his blood alcohol level was 2.4, 3 times the legal limit, that he'd been kicked out of a bar on Central Avenue for being too drunk and had gotten in his car anyway because calling an Uber was apparently too much trouble. I remember the moment of realization. That split second when your brain processes what's about to happen, but your body can't move fast enough to stop it. That moment when time slows down and speeds up at the same time, when you see everything with perfect clarity but can't do anything about it. I remember thinking, I'm going to die right here, right now. And my babies are home sleeping and they don't know this is happening. The impact sounded like the world ending. Metal on metal, glass exploding, the physics of two vehicles colliding at high speed translated into sound and fury and destruction. My car, a Honda Accord, sensible and safe, and paid off, spun. Once, twice, 3 times, each rotation throwing me against the seatbelt so hard I felt ribs crack, felt my body become a rag doll and everything that was supposed to stay inside my body trying to get out. Then the car flipped, once, twice, the world turning upside down and right side up and upside down again. The seatbelt that was saving my life was also trying to cut me in half. The airbags deployed with the sound like gunshots, hitting me in the face, the chest, everywhere at once. When the car finally stopped moving, I was upside down, held in place by the seatbelt. The car was resting against something. Later I learned it was a pine tree, an old one, thick enough that it stopped the car from flipping a 3rd time, probably saved my life. I remember the smell more than anything. Gasoline, blood, that particular smell of a car that's been destroyed, like burning rubber and hot metal and chemicals mixing together into something toxic and wrong. I remember the glass everywhere, covering me like glitter, like snow, like 1,000 tiny knives that hadn't quite penetrated but were waiting for me to move so they could finish the job. I remember the pain. Not sharp, not yet. Just a spreading awareness that something was very, very wrong with my body. Multiple things, everything. And I remember thinking, crystal clear, despite the chaos, please, God, please let me see my babies again. Please don't let this be how it ends. Please let me wake up tomorrow and kiss their foreheads and make their lunches and tell them I love them one more time. The next thing I knew, I was waking up. Except waking up isn't the right word. It was more like surfacing. Like being underwater and slowly, slowly rising toward light you can see, but can't reach. Fighting through layers of darkness and confusion and pain so intense, it didn't even feel like pain anymore, just a state of being. I heard sounds first. Beeping, rhythmic, constant, the kind of beeping that you know without being told means hospital, means machines, means something is very wrong. Voices, muffled like listening underwater. Footsteps, the hiss and click of equipment I couldn't see. I tried to open my eyes. They wouldn't open. Tried to move my hand. It wouldn't move. Tried to speak, to call out, to make any sound at all. Nothing. My body was a prison, and I was trapped inside it, conscious but completely helpless. The panic that hit me was primal, absolute. Imagine being fully awake, fully aware, but unable to communicate that awareness to anyone. Unable to tell them you're there, you're alive, you're fighting. Unable to even blink or twitch a finger to signal that there's someone home in this broken body. I tried to scream. No sound came out. Tried to thrash, to fight against whatever was holding me still. Nothing moved. I was locked in, trapped, buried alive in my own flesh. Then I heard a voice. Male. Clinical. Doctor voice. Mrs. Hayes, if you can hear me, we need you to know you've been in a serious accident. You're at Atrium Health Carolina's Medical Center. You've sustained severe traumatic brain injury, multiple spinal fractures, shattered pelvis, internal bleeding. We've had to place you in a medically induced coma to give your brain time to heal. Your family is here. You're not alone. Family. Darius. The kids. Oh, God, the kids. I tried again to move, to signal, to do anything. Nothing. The doctor continued, his voice getting quieter, like he was talking to someone else now. The next 72 hours are critical. There's significant swelling in the brain. We won't know the extent of the damage until the swelling goes down. Right now, we're just trying to keep her stable. Will she wake up? A voice I recognized. Darius, my husband. And he was crying. I could hear it in his voice, that thick, choked sound of someone trying to hold it together and failing. The doctor said, "We don't know. With traumatic brain injuries this severe, it's impossible to predict. Some patients wake up fully functional, some never wake up at all. We just have to wait and see." Never wake up. The words echoed in my head. Never wake up. Never see Destiny's gap-toothed smile. Never hear Cameron's dinosaur facts. Never make school lunches or read bedtime stories or kiss foreheads or do all the thousands of ordinary things that make up a life. I heard Darius sob. Felt pressure on my hand. He was holding it, squeezing it. Baby, you got to fight. The kids need you. I need you. Please fight. I was fighting with everything I had, but my body wasn't listening. My body was somewhere else, doing its own thing, healing or dying or whatever it was doing. And I was just a passenger with no control. The days blurred together. I later learned I was in that induced coma for 4 days, while the swelling in my brain went down, while the doctors tried to stabilize all the broken pieces of me, while my family kept vigil and prayed and hoped and feared. But somewhere around day 4, something changed. I started coming back, not all the way, not enough that I could move or speak or open my eyes, but enough that I was aware, fully, completely aware, conscious in a way that felt different from those first confused moments. I was there. I was present. I was listening. And what I heard would change everything. Darius came every day. I learned to recognize his footsteps, the particular way he walked with that slight drag of his left foot from an old basketball injury. He'd come in smelling like the outside world, car exhaust and cologne and coffee from the hospital cafeteria downstairs. He'd hold my hand, talk to me about the kids, about how Destiny cried every night asking for her mama, about how Cameron kept drawing me pictures that he insisted the nurses taped to my wall so I'd see them when I woke up. "They miss you so much, Keisha," Darius would say, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to do this without you. I don't know how to be both parents. I don't know how to explain to them that mommy might not wake up. Baby, you got to come back to us. You got to wake up, please. I was fighting with everything I had, but my body wasn't listening. My body was somewhere else doing its own thing, healing or dying or whatever it was doing. And I was just a passenger with no control. My mama came. I heard her voice, strong and steady the way it always was, reading me Bible verses and singing old hymns and telling me stories from when I was little. She'd pray over me, her hand on my forehead, calling down healing and mercy and divine intervention. Lord, this is my baby, my firstborn, the one I carried in my body for 9 months and brought into this world with blood and pain and joy. I'm asking you, Lord, bring her back. Don't take her yet. She got work to do, babies to raise, a life to live. Bring my baby back. I wanted so badly to answer her, to tell her I was there, I was fighting. I heard every prayer, but I couldn't. Could only listen and hope and fight in the darkness of my own paralyzed body. Day 5. Day 6. Time marked by shift changes, by the rotation of nurses, by the sound of meals being delivered to other patients, by the rhythm of life happening around me while I stayed frozen. And then on day 6, everything changed. I heard the door open, heard footsteps, but not Darius's footsteps, not my mama's soft shuffle, not the quick, efficient steps of nurses I had learned to recognize. These were different, expensive heels. Click, click, click on the tile floor. Slow, deliberate, confident. And then I heard her voice. Darius, baby. It's time to face facts. Lorraine, my mother-in-law, and her tone wasn't concerned or sympathetic or grieving. It was cold, calculating, business-like. And what she said next would prove that sometimes the people who should protect you are the very ones planning your destruction.
She ain't waking up, Lorraine said, her voice low and cold. The doctor said, maybe never. You heard him same as I did. I felt pressure on my hand. Darius was holding it. His voice was thick with tears. Mama, don't say that. Don't give up on her. I ain't giving up, baby. I'm being realistic. You got 2 children who need stability. You can't be tied to a vegetable for the rest of your life. Vegetable. She called me a vegetable. I felt rage try to move through my body, but it had nowhere to go, no way to express itself. I was trapped, helpless, forced to listen to this woman talk about me like I was already gone. Lorraine kept talking, her heels clicking as she paced. I talked to my lawyer yesterday, Thomas Bradshaw. You remember him? He handled your uncle's estate. He says if she don't wake up in 30 days, we can file for guardianship of the children. Get your name and my name on everything. The kids' custody, the house deed, all of it. Mama, Darius's voice was weak, uncertain. Listen to me, Lorraine said, and her voice got harder, more insistent. We tell the courts she ain't never been right since the accident. Show them all the medical records, get a doctor to say she's not coming back. Then we get full guardianship, and you can make decisions without all this waiting and hoping and praying that ain't doing nothing but wasting time and money. Money. Of course, it always came back to money with Lorraine. She'd never approved of our marriage, had told Darius I was below his station because I was a teacher and not a doctor or lawyer like she'd wanted for her son. Had made it clear at every family gathering that I wasn't good enough, wasn't wealthy enough, wasn't connected enough. But I'd never imagined she'd try to take my children, my babies. While I was lying here fighting for my life, she was planning how to steal them. And the house, Lorraine continued, warming to her subject now. That house on Beatty's Ford Road is worth at least $400,000 with the market the way it is. We sell it, split the money. You and the kids move in with me until we find you something better. Somewhere in Myers Park near good schools, good people. Good people, meaning rich people. People Lorraine approved of. Darius didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. And that silence was somehow worse than agreement would have been. Lorraine's heels clicked closer to my bed. I smelled her perfume, Chanel No. 5, the same scent she'd worn at our wedding, at the hospital when the kids were born, at every family event where she looked at me with barely disguised contempt. And Darius, baby, she said, her voice dropping even lower, more intimate. I already called Pleasant Memories Funeral Home on Park Road. They got a nice package, basic cremation, simple service. No point in spending money on a fancy funeral when she ain't got no family but us anyway. Funeral. She was planning my funeral. While I could hear her while I was still alive. The machines beeped steadily. My heart rate staying calm, even though inside I was screaming, raging, begging Darius to tell her no, to tell her she was crazy, to remember the woman he married and promised to love in sickness and in health. Mama, I can't talk about this right now, Darius finally said, but his voice was tired, defeated, not shocked or angry like it should have been. We have to talk about it, Lorraine insisted. Time ain't on our side. Every day she lays here is another day of hospital bills piling up. Another day the kids are confused and scared. Another day you putting your life on hold for something that might never happen. And I got somebody to meet you, Sharon Bennett's daughter, Monique. You remember Monique? Beautiful girl, lawyer at a big firm uptown, makes 6 figures. Light skin, good hair, exactly your type. My type. Lorraine had always been colorist, had made snide comments about my darker skin tone, my natural hair that I wore in locks because chemicals made my scalp break out. She'd never said it directly, but the implications were always there, that I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't light enough, wasn't good enough for her son. And now she was trying to replace me, before I was even dead. And she just got out of a bad relationship, Lorraine continued. I already told her about you, showed you a picture. She says she'd be happy to meet you once all this is settled. Settled. Like my death was just a business transaction waiting to be finalized. Like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person fighting for her life. Mama, please, Darius said, and I heard him stand up, heard his chair scrape against the floor. I need some air. I can't do this right now. We'll talk more tomorrow, Lorraine said, her voice following him toward the door. But think about what I said. Think about those babies. Think about your future. Sometimes loving someone means letting them go. The door closed. Lorraine's footsteps receded, and I was left alone in my silent prison, my mind screaming, with the knowledge that my mother-in-law was planning my murder, legal murder, medical murder, but murder nonetheless. And my husband wasn't fighting her on it. I tried to move, tried with everything I had, concentrated on my right hand, on just moving one finger, just making one small movement that would show them I was here, I was aware, I was fighting. Nothing. Not even a twitch. The rage and fear and helplessness mixed into something unbearable. If I could have died from the force of my own emotions, I would have, but I couldn't even do that. Could only lie there, trapped, listening to my own execution being planned in calm, measured tones by the woman who was supposed to be family. I don't know how long I lay there alone. Time had lost all meaning. But eventually I heard the door open again. Soft-soled shoes, nurse shoes. I'd learned to recognize different staff members by their footsteps, by their voices when they spoke to each other, by the efficiency or gentleness of their touch when they adjusted my IV or checked my vitals. But this voice was new, female, young, and with an accent that wasn't quite southern, that has some northern edge to it. "Keisha, baby girl, it's me. It's Simone." Simone. I didn't know no Simone. Darius didn't have a sister. My mama only had me and my brother DeAndre, who was overseas in the military. The voice came closer, right by my ear, barely above a whisper. "It's me, your sister. I know you ain't spoke to me in 8 years. I know you probably surprised I'm here. But Mama called me when you got in the accident, told me you were at Atrium. I transferred here 3 months ago from Emory in Atlanta. I'm an ICU nurse now, Keisha, and I'm assigned to you." Simone. My sister Simone. The sister I hadn't spoke to since she was 17 and ran away from Charlotte, saying she couldn't breathe here anymore, saying she needed to find herself somewhere that wasn't suffocating her. The sister who left without saying goodbye, who called Mama once a month but never came home. Simone was here. Simone was my nurse. And somehow, impossibly, Simone knew I could hear her.
"I know you in there, Keisha," Simone whispered, her breath warm against my ear. "I've been watching your vitals. I've been studying the brain activity monitors. You ain't in a coma no more, are you? You awake. You just can't move yet." Relief flooded through me so intense it felt physical. Someone knew. Someone could see me. I wasn't alone in this nightmare. "I seen your eyes moving under the lids when people talk to you. Rapid eye movement? That's consciousness, Keisha. That's you trying to break through. The doctors, they see it too, but they don't know what it means yet. Could be nothing. Could be everything. But I know you. I know you fighting in there." I wanted to cry, wanted to sob with relief and grief and the overwhelming emotion of hearing my sister's voice after 8 years of silence, 8 years of missing her, even though I'd been too proud to admit it, even though the family rift had seemed too wide to cross. Simone's hand touched my arm, gentle, careful. "I'm gonna be honest with you. I heard what your mother-in-law said. I was outside the room doing charting when she came in and I heard every word about the guardianship, about the funeral home, about finding Darius a new woman before you even gone." She paused and I heard a rustling fabric. So I recorded it on my phone. I've been recording every conversation in this room since I realized you were conscious. Because Keisha, what Lorraine doing, that's not just cruel, that's criminal. She's planning to take you off life support, claim you had a DNR that don't exist, take your kids, take your money, and move your husband onto someone else. And I got proof. Proof. Evidence. Documentation. Simone had always been the smart one, the strategic one, the one who thought 5 steps ahead. Even at 17 when she left, she'd had a plan, had known exactly where she was going and why, even if she couldn't explain it to a family that didn't understand. "I ain't gonna let them do this to you, Keisha. I ain't gonna let that evil woman take your babies or convince your husband to pull the plug. You gonna wake up, Keisha, and when you do, we gonna make sure everyone knows exactly what Lorraine tried to do." Over the next 3 days, Simone whispered updates every time she came into my room. She'd check my vitals, adjust my IV, document everything the machines were telling her, and while she worked, she'd lean close and tell me what she recorded, who'd said what moves were being made. "Lorraine came back today with a lawyer," she whispered on day 7. "Some man in an expensive suit named Thomas Bradshaw. They were talking in the hallway, didn't know I could hear them through the door. He was explaining how to get emergency guardianship, how to convince the court you ain't got capacity to make medical decisions no more. I recorded the whole thing." Day 8, she told me, "Darius brought the kids today. Destiny and Cameron, oh, Keisha, they so beautiful. Destiny looks just like you, same eyes, same smile. Cameron got Darius's face, but your spirit. They were crying, telling you they love you, begging you to wake up. And Lorraine," Simone's voice got hard.
She pulled them aside and told them they'd be coming to live with her now. Told them Mommy wasn't coming home. Made them cry harder. I got that recorded too. I raised inside my paralyzed body. My babies. Someone was telling my babies their mama was gone while I was right there fighting to get back to them. But here's what you need to know. Your brain activity is getting stronger. The swelling is going down. The doctors are talking about reducing your sedation, seeing if you can wake up on your own. They just don't know yet. Could be tomorrow, could be next week, but it's happening, Keisha. You coming back. Day 9, March 21st, 2024. I felt different when I woke up that morning, if you can call it waking up when you'd never really been asleep. Different how? I couldn't explain. Just lighter. Like something that had been pressing down on me had lifted slightly. Simone must have felt it too, so when she came in for her shift, she leaned close and said, "Today's today. I can feel it. Today you gonna come back to us." That afternoon, Darius came in with Lorraine. I heard them talking in low voices near the door. "Monique's in the waiting room," Lorraine said. "I told her to come by, meet her properly. She's excited, Darius. She's already picked out a house in Ballantyne, 5 bedrooms, pool, good schools for the kids. She's thinking ahead, planning a future. That's the kind of woman you need." "Mama, Keisha ain't even what? Ain't even dead yet? She's already gone, baby. That body in that bed ain't your wife no more. That's just a shell. The real Keisha left the day that car flipped. Time to accept it and move on." They walked closer to my bed. I felt them standing over me, felt their presence like storm clouds. "We talked to the doctors," Lorraine continued. "They agreed to start weaning her off the ventilator tomorrow. If she don't wake up on her own, if she can't breathe on her own, then we know we can make the decision with clear conscience." The decision to let me die, to turn off the machines and watch me suffocate, to tell my children their mother couldn't fight hard enough to replace me with a light-skinned lawyer who'd already picked out our new house. Something inside me broke. Not physically. Physically, I was already as broken as a person could be, but something else. Some last wall between my conscious mind and my trapped body, some barrier that had been holding me back, keeping me frozen. I felt my finger twitch. Just my right index finger, the smallest movement, barely perceptible. But it moved. I focused every ounce of will I had into that finger. Move, move, move. It twitched again, stronger this time. "Did you see that? Did her finger just move? Darius, did her finger just move?" "Probably just a spasm," Lorraine said dismissively. "The body does that sometimes. Don't mean nothing." But it meant everything, because now I knew I could move. Now I knew the paralysis wasn't permanent. Now I knew I could fight my way back. Simone must have been watching from the nurse's station, so she came in immediately. "I need to check her vitals," she said, her voice professionally cool even though I could hear the excitement underneath. She leaned over me, ostensibly checking my IV, and whispered so low only I could hear, "Do it again. Move that finger. Show them you're here." I gathered every bit of strength, every ounce of determination, every molecule of rage and love and desperate need to live. My finger moved. Then my whole hand twitched. Then my arm jerked. "Oh my God, Darius, she's moving. Keisha, baby, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me." I squeezed. Not much, but enough. Enough that he felt it. Enough that he knew. Within an hour, I'd done what the doctor said might never happen. I opened my eyes. The light was blinding at first, painful after so many days of darkness, but I forced them open anyway. Forced myself to look at the room I'd only experienced through sound and touch and smell. White ceiling tiles, fluorescent lights, machines surrounding my bed like mechanical guards, and faces. Darius's tear-streaked face, Lorraine's shocked expression, Simone standing in the corner with her phone out, recording everything. "She's awake!" Darius was sobbing now, holding my hand like he'd never let go. "Keisha, oh God, you're awake. You came back to us." I tried to speak, but there was still a tube down my throat. My vocal cords wouldn't work. But my eyes did. and I looked past Darius straight at Lorraine, and I saw the exact moment she realized what my awakening meant. The exact moment she understood that all her plans, all her plotting was about to come crashing down. Her face went pale, then red. Then she tried to smile, tried to pretend she was happy I was awake. But it was too late. I'd seen the truth in her eyes. Disappointment, fear, calculation about how to recover from this unexpected development. Simone moved quickly, pressing the call button, summoning doctors. Within minutes, the room was full of people. Medical staff checking my vitals, examining my responses, asking questions I couldn't answer yet, but could respond to with blinks and squeezes. "Mrs. Hayes, this is remarkable," the neurologist said, shining lights in my eyes, checking my pupil responses. "Your recovery is, I don't want to say miraculous, but it's certainly unexpected. We need to keep you monitored, run tests, but this is a very good sign." They removed the breathing tube carefully. My throat was raw. My voice when it came was barely a whisper, but it was there. The first word I managed to croak out was, "Babies." "They're fine," Darius said immediately, holding my hand like he'd never let go. "Destiny and Cameron are with your mama. They're going to be so happy you're awake. Keisha, I thought I lost you. I thought—" "Lorraine," I managed to whisper, my eyes finding my mother-in-law. "Heard everything." Her face froze. "What are you talking about? You were in a coma." "No," Simone said, stepping forward, holding up her phone. She was conscious, aware, trapped in locked-in syndrome, and she heard every word you said, every plan you made, every evil thing you plotted, and I recorded all of it. The room went silent. The other nurses stopped what they were doing. The doctors looked between Simone and Lorraine. Darius's face went from confusion to dawning horror as he realized what was being said. "What do you mean, recorded?" Lorraine demanded, her voice rising. "You can't record people without their permission. That's illegal." "Actually," Simone said calmly, "North Carolina is a one-party consent state. I only need one person's permission to record a conversation. And Keisha is my sister. I had her best interests in mind. You want to hear what you said?" She pulled out her phone, started playing the audio. Lorraine's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. "She ain't waking up. We can file for guardianship, sell the house. I already called the funeral home." Darius stepped back from my bed like he'd been slapped. "Mama, what is this?" "It's nothing," Lorraine said quickly. "It's taken out of context. I was just trying to help you prepare for the worst-case scenario." "You called a funeral home," Darius said hollow, "while she was still alive, while I was sitting here holding her hand, praying she'd wake up." Simone played another clip, Lorraine's voice again talking to her mama. "Monique already picked out a house in Ballantine. She's exactly your type. Once this is settled—" "Stop," Darius said, his voice breaking. "Stop playing it. I heard enough." But Simone wasn't done. She played one more clip, the one that would change everything. Lorraine's voice, talking to her lawyer in the hallway. "How fast can we get the guardianship through? The faster she's declared incompetent, the faster we can access the assets. The house alone is worth $500,000. The lead doctor, Dr. Patterson, stepped forward. "Mrs. Hayes, do you want us to contact hospital security?" I nodded, still unable to speak more than a few words at a time. "Mrs. Lorraine Hayes, you need to leave this room immediately. Hospital security will escort you out, and I'm required to report this to the hospital ethics board and potentially to law enforcement." "You can't do this," Lorraine shrieked. "I'm family. I have rights." "You have no rights here," Dr. Patterson said coldly. "Security." 2 security guards entered within seconds.
They'd clearly been called when Simone first started playing the recordings. They took Lorraine by the arms, gently but firmly. "This is elder abuse," Lorraine screamed as they walked her toward the door. "I'm 68 years old. You can't treat me like this. Darius, tell them." But Darius didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at me with tears running down his face, looking like his entire world had shattered. Because it had. The next 72 hours were a blur of police interviews, legal consultations, and medical evaluations. Detective Angela Martinez from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department arrived within hours of Lorraine being escorted from my hospital room. Simone had saved everything, every recording, every conversation, 9 days' worth of evidence documenting Lorraine's plot to have me declared incompetent, take custody of my children, liquidate my assets, and replace me with someone she deemed more appropriate for her son. "Mrs. Hayes," Detective Martinez said, sitting beside my bed with a notepad and recorder. "I know you're still recovering, but I need to ask you some questions. Your sister has provided us with extensive audio evidence. Can you confirm that you were conscious and aware during the conversations that were recorded?" My voice was still weak, but I managed to speak. "Yes, I heard everything. Couldn't move, couldn't talk, but I heard every word." "And you did not consent to any of the plans discussed by Lorraine Hayes regarding guardianship, asset liquidation, or end-of-life decisions?" "No, never. I was fighting to live, to get back to my babies." Detective Martinez's jaw tightened. What Mrs. Hayes attempted falls under several criminal statutes: attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit guardianship abuse, filing false documentation, and potentially attempted involuntary manslaughter if she had succeeded in convincing doctors to withdraw life support prematurely. She paused, looking carefully at me. "We'll need your full cooperation, your testimony. Your sister's recordings are strong evidence, but your testimony will make the case." "Whatever you need," I whispered. "She tried to take my children, my life, everything." Over the next weeks, as I slowly regained strength and mobility, the case against Lorraine built momentum. The hospital ethics board launched an investigation into how Lorraine had gained so much access and influence over my care. They discovered she'd been impersonating someone with medical power of attorney, had pressured junior staff members, and had attempted to manipulate my medical records. Thomas Bradshaw, the lawyer she'd consulted, immediately distanced himself from her when the recordings became evidence. He claimed she'd misrepresented the situation to him, that he thought he was providing legal guidance for a legitimate end-of-life scenario, not helping plan a premature death for financial gain. Monique, the lawyer Lorraine had lined up to replace me, lost her law license. The North Carolina State Bar investigated and found she'd known about Lorraine's plans, had participated in discussions about my assets and my children's custody while I was still alive and fighting for survival. She'd sent emails to Darius about planning for your future and the kids' transition while I was in the ICU. The state bar ruled she'd violated ethical standards and revoked her license. Darius was devastated. Not charged with any crimes, he'd been weak and manipulated, but he hadn't actively participated in his mother's schemes. But our marriage was effectively over. He'd listened to his mother plan my funeral and hadn't stopped her. He'd let her talk about replacing me while I was fighting for my life. He'd been silent when he should have been my fiercest defender. 3 months after waking up, I filed for divorce. I got primary custody of Destiny and Cameron. The house stayed in my name. It had always been in my name alone, something Lorraine hadn't known when she planned to split the money. Darius moved into an apartment in South End, saw the kids every other weekend, tried to rebuild relationships that had been poisoned by his mother's evil and his own weakness. Physical therapy was grueling, learning to walk again, to use my hands with precision, to rebuild muscles that had atrophied during those 9 days of paralysis. But I had motivation. Every time I wanted to quit, I thought about Destiny and Cameron, thought about Lorraine standing over my bed, planning my death, thought about getting strong enough to fight back. 6 months after the accident, I could walk without assistance. 9 months after, I was driving again. A year after, I was back teaching 3rd grade at the same elementary school where Destiny was now in 4th grade. But the legal case against Lorraine was just beginning.
The trial began in November 2024, 8 months after I woke up from my nightmare. The Mecklenburg County Courthouse was packed. Media had picked up the story. Mother-in-law planned funeral while daughter-in-law fought for life. And it had gone viral. People across the country were following the case. Lorraine Hayes was charged with attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit guardianship abuse, filing false legal documents, elder abuse, ironically since I was the victim but she tried to use her age as a shield, attempted theft, and conspiracy to commit medical negligence. Her defense attorney, a slick man named Robert Chin, tried to paint her as a concerned grandmother making difficult decisions during a family crisis. Tried to argue that the recordings were taken out of context, that Lorraine was simply exploring legal options during an uncertain time. But the prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Nicole Johnson, had too much evidence. She had Simone's recordings. She had my testimony. She had testimony from hospital staff who'd seen Lorraine's behavior. She had the emails between Lorraine and Monique discussing how to transition the children and liquidate assets while I was still in the ICU. Most damning of all, she had the recording of Lorraine talking to Thomas Bradshaw about how fast can we get the guardianship through, and the faster she's declared incompetent, the faster we can access the assets. Simone was the star witness. She took the stand in her nurse's scrubs, calm and professional, and methodically explained how she'd realized I was conscious, how she'd started documenting conversations to protect me, how she'd captured 9 days of Lorraine's plotting. "Did your sister Keisha consent to being recorded?" Robert Chin asked on cross-examination, trying to poke holes. "She couldn't consent to anything," Simone said evenly. "She was paralyzed. But I was acting in her best interest as her sister and as her medical professional. And North Carolina is a one-party consent state for recordings. I don't need permission from people plotting to harm my sister." "Objection, characterization," Jen started. "Overruled," Judge Patricia Mendez said. "The jury will hear the witness testimony." When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand without assistance, wore a blue dress, held my head high, looked at Lorraine in the eye as I was sworn in. ADA Johnson led me through my testimony. The accident, waking up paralyzed, hearing Lorraine's voice, hearing the funeral plans, the guardianship schemes, the replacement wife already picked out. My children being told their mother wasn't coming home while I was 20 feet away, conscious and fighting. "Mrs. Hayes," Johnson said gently, "when you heard your mother-in-law discussing your funeral arrangements while you were conscious but unable to move or speak, what went through your mind?" I looked directly at the jury. 12 faces, all watching me intently. "Terror," I said clearly. "Pure terror. I was trapped in my own body, and the woman who was supposed to be family was planning my death. Not out of mercy, out of greed. She wanted my children, my house, my insurance life. She wanted to replace me with someone she deemed more suitable, and I couldn't do anything but listen and pray someone would save me." Several jurors wiped their eyes. Lorraine's defense was weak. Chin tried to argue diminished capacity, that she was elderly and confused, but Lorraine had undermined that defense herself. The recordings showed her to be calculating, strategic, fully aware of what she was doing. He tried to argue that she was just trying to help her son through a difficult time. But the jury heard her voice talking about selling my house, splitting the money, finding Darius a new wife before I was even dead. He tried to argue that I might not have been conscious, that locked-in syndrome was rare, and the recordings might have been made when I was truly unaware. But multiple doctors testified that my brain activity showed consciousness, that my eye movements indicated awareness, that locked-in syndrome, while rare, was exactly what I'd experienced. The most powerful moment came when ADA Johnson played a recording in open court. The entire courtroom went silent as Lorraine's voice filled the space. That body in that bed ain't your wife no more. That's just a shell. The real Keisha left the day that car flipped. Time to accept it and move on. And then, on the same recording, the sound of my machines beeping steadily, my heart rate staying calm despite my internal terror, proof that I was alive, aware, listening to my own death being planned. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. "The prosecution rests," Johnson said. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they came back, the foreman was a black woman in her 50s who looked at Lorraine with pure disgust. "On the count of attempted fraud, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the count of conspiracy to commit guardianship abuse?" "Guilty." "On the count of filing false legal documents?" "Guilty." "Guilty." On every count.
Judge Patricia Mendez scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, the courtroom was packed again. Media, supporters, people who'd followed the story and wanted to see justice done. Before sentencing, the judge allowed victim impact statements. My mama went first, stood at the podium in her Sunday dress, talked about almost losing her daughter, about watching her grandbabies cry themselves to sleep, about the evil of someone who would try to profit from another person's tragedy. Simone went next, talked about the 8 years she'd been away from her family, about coming back just in time to save her sister's life, about using her medical training to protect someone who couldn't protect herself. Then it was my turn. I stood at the podium and looked at Lorraine. She wouldn't meet my eyes, just stared at her hands, folded in her lap, looking smaller than she had when she'd stood over my hospital bed in her expensive heels and Chanel perfume. "Lorraine Hayes," I said, my voice steady and strong, "you tried to take everything from me, my life, my children, my home, my husband. You stood over my hospital bed and planned my funeral while I was still breathing. You told my babies their mother wasn't coming home. You tried to replace me before my body was even cold." I paused. Let the words sink in. "But you failed. Because I had something you didn't count on. A sister who loved me enough to document your evil, medical professionals who believed in my recovery, and a will to survive that was stronger than your greed." I looked at the judge. "Your Honor, this woman doesn't deserve mercy. She showed me none. She deserves to face the full consequences of trying to murder someone through manipulation of the medical system." Judge Mendez nodded. Then she looked at Lorraine. "Mrs. Hayes, stand." Lorraine stood, shaking. "What you attempted to do to your daughter-in-law is one of the most unconscionable things I've seen in my 20 years on the bench," Judge Mendez said. You exploited a medical crisis for financial gain. You traumatized children. You manipulated your son. You tried to convince medical professionals to end the life that was fighting to survive. The sentence is 15 years in state prison, no possibility for parole for at least 7 years. 15 years. Lorraine was 68. She'd be 83 if she served the full sentence, 75 if she got out at the earliest opportunity. She sobbed as they led her away in handcuffs. Kept saying it wasn't fair, she was too old, she had health problems. But Judge Mendez was unmoved. "You should have thought about that before you planned a funeral for a woman who could hear you," she said. Now it's been 2 years since that Tuesday night when I left to buy milk and eggs and almost never came home. 2 years since I lay in that ICU bed hearing my own death planned. 2 years since my sister, the sister I hadn't spoken to in 8 years, saved my life with nothing but scrubs and a smartphone. Simone and I are closer than we ever were growing up. She lives 10 minutes away, comes over for Sunday dinner every week, is Destiny and Cameron's favorite aunt. We never talk about those 8 years we were apart. Whatever sent her away, whatever brought her back, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is she was there when I needed her most. I started the Keisha Hayes Foundation for Family Advocacy, a nonprofit that helps people document abuse, helps families navigate medical crises, provides legal resources for people whose families turn predatory during emergencies. We've helped over 300 people in 2 years. Some cases are medical, like mine. Some are different. But they all involve family betrayal and the desperate need for evidence, for documentation, for someone who'll believe you when you say your loved ones are trying to hurt you. Every night, I tuck Destiny and Cameron into their beds in the house Lorraine tried to steal, in rooms she tried to take from them, and I smell their little heads still scented with bath soap and childhood innocence. And I thank God for drunk drivers who don't kill you, for medical equipment that keeps you breathing, for sisters who come back after 8 years, and for smartphones that record evil plotting itself out loud. People ask me if I've forgiven Lorraine. The answer's complicated. I've forgiven her in the sense that I don't carry hatred in my heart anymore. That poison would only hurt me, not her. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what she did was okay. It means I've released the rage so I can live my life free from her shadow. When people ask me how I survived, I tell them the truth. I survived because I had too much to live for, because my sister loved me enough to document evil, and because sometimes God doesn't send an army to save you. Sometimes he just sends one nurse with a phone and a heart that never forgot his little sister. So if you're lying in a bed somewhere feeling helpless, if your family is circling like vultures, if you think nobody's fighting for you, hear me right now. Your breakthrough might be wearing scrubs and recording on an iPhone. Your miracle might be someone you haven't spoken to in years, someone who walks back into your life at exactly the right moment. Your rescue might be quiet, might be strategic, might not look like rescue at all until you look back and see how you were saved. Document everything. Record everything when legally possible. Trust your gut when it tells you family isn't always family. When it tells you love should protect, not destroy. When it warns you that people planning your future without you in it are not people who love you. This your first time here? Welcome home. Hit that subscribe and tap that bell because we just getting started. Goodbye and God bless you all.